Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Om. The topic today will be the Eightfold Path of Gautama Buddha, as explained to us by Osho. I cannot help but bring in whatever Vedanta that I know in the explanation of Buddha's Eightfold Path. The Buddha's life story everybody knows. For the first 5 minutes, I will quickly run through the life story because for some reasons it is relevant. Buddha was born on Buddha Purnima day at Lumbini, which is in Nepal on the northern UP border, between two sal trees. And when he was born, there were 9 astrologers in the king's court. 8 of them gave a V sign. A V sign meant that either your son is going to be a bhikkhu, a beggar, or he's going to be a great emperor. The wisest of them put one finger, and the king goes and asks them, what do you mean by that? And he says, I'm absolutely certain your son is going to become a bhikkhu, a beggar. The king did not want that to happen, so he did all that he could to give a very congenial environment for his son. At an early age, he was married. He got to be exposed to only the good things in the world. And then one day it so chanced that he escaped the clutches of the father and he was taken on a chariot ride through his own countryside. And he chanced to see 3 things which we see every day. He saw an old person, he saw a sick person, and he saw a dead body. And it occurred to him, what is all this? And his charioteer for the first time explained. And then he saw a sadhu sannyas. And he asked us, what is this man? He said, this man is in search of truth. That night, he was shaken up. It was a contrast to see all the luxuries that he had in the palace. And suddenly, for a moment, all these luxuries were utterly meaningless for him. And this was a turning point in his life. And for us, the turning point that we have studied in Mundaka is the 12th mantra toward the end of the first section, which goes like this: Pariksha Lokan Karmachitan Brahmana. That means those who have really examined their life know one thing for certain, that whatever you do, you cannot, through your own efforts, you are not able to attain to Purnatvam. And if you want total fulfillment, you have to make a complete U-turn. Tat Vignartham sa Gurumeva Abhigachet Samit Panihi Shotriya Brahmanishta. So this was a turning point. He, middle of the night, very secretively, he leaves his home. He asks his charioteer to take him to the end of his country. And there he shaves off his head, gives off his costly jewelry and clothes to his charioteer. The charioteer is like a father to him. He's been a guide all along. And he looks at Buddha and says, see, I'm a very simple person. All I know is what you have is something that everybody would envy. You have got the best in the world. It looks very foolish for me that you are leaving all this and going to something of the unknown. Buddha tries to convey to him. He looks at his palace for one last time and he says, all the luxuries in the palace to me are nothing but burning fire. I'm not able to stay in that place. I need to move. And that was his transition. He went from guru to guru. He went from every teacher. He did every sadhana possible. This is what is called Shramana. Shramana is when you put yourself into intense spiritual practices, whatever is available as possible. He did everything that is possible. He drove himself to become like a skeleton. If you go visit Bodh Gaya, there is a tiny stream called Niranjana. On that particular day, he had been starving for so many days. And as he was trying to cross the Niranjana, which was a very weak current, but his body was so weakened that he almost fell down. At that time, he clung onto a branch of a tree. And for the first time, he came and sat under a tree and he gave up everything. He gave up all effort to achieve whatever he had set out to. At that moment, a lady passing by, seeing a person in such a pathetic state, offers him some milk and something to eat. And for the first time, he breaks the rules about accepting something from a woman. He accepts something to eat and drink. And he sits under a Bodhi tree now, not expecting anything. He had done all that effort was possible. Once effort was over, now he was available for grace. And grace dawned on him abundantly. At that spot in Bodh Gaya, and that particular night, on a Buddha Purnima night, Buddha attained to Purnatvam. For 7 days, he stayed in there in a state of ecstasy, not knowing what really needs to be done. He was so complete, he was so full. And then he takes a bold decision. Either he continues to remain in a personal ecstasy, or he shares with the whole world. And he makes a decision that I want to share with the world. He travels all the way to a place near Varanasi, where he knew his Guru Bhais were there. That place was Sarnath, and he reaches Sarnath, and that place where Ashoka has built that huge Dhammek stupa. He gives his first sermon. Oh monks, you know what it is. I'm so alert and so aware. Every breath that passes me, I'm aware. When I take a big breath, he says, oh monks, I know I have taken a big breath. When I take a small breath, I know I have taken a small breath. Medium-sized breath, I know I have taken a medium-sized breath. So his fellow bhikkhus were able to see something of the glory and something of the radiance when you live a life of full awareness. Sometime later, he took a bold decision of coming back to his home. His father, the king, accept his son roaming around like a beggar. But his wife and his mother and his a period of time all decide to take sannyas, and they take sannyas under him. And that is another story that continued. Now we come to what is Buddha's real message. Buddha's real message, and I remember this from my school days, from my history books, that Buddha gave what is called the Four Noble Truths. Buddha discovered through his enlightenment that this world is full of sorrow. The truth of this world is dukkha. And he understood that the basis of the dukkha is karma, my inability to accept the present situation as it is. Buddha also realized that the only way out of dukkha is to be able to overcome desire. And he says, to overcome desire, I will give you what is called the Eightfold Path. These are the four noble truths, that the world is full of suffering. The basis of suffering is desire, karma, my inability to accept my present situation as it is. Buddha said, if you are able to overcome karma, you can overcome suffering. And to overcome suffering, he gives you a marga, which is called the Eight Noble Truths. We come to our Vedantic thoughts that we had. Now, our job is to be able to overcome karma. We have been studying the 3rd chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, where Arjuna asked this question. You know, I know what is right and what is wrong. I still continue to do what is wrong. And Krishna says, Kama Esha, Krodha Esha. We should know what is this triangle which is entangling us. This triangle which entangled us, Vedantic teachers call this as Avidya-kama-Karma. Avidya is the grandfather, Kama is the son, the grandson is Karma. Because of Avidya, about ignorance, because of Maya Shakti, which hides the Purnatvam within me, I feel I am incomplete. And because I am incomplete, I feel that if I do this or I accomplish this, I will be complete. And therefore, the grandson is Karma. And how do we overcome this? This knot in our heart is called the Hridaya Granthi. And our whole spiritual effort is to unlock, to break that knot which has been with us for so many janmas. We have studied this beautiful mantra. This mantra, as you will recollect, is in Mundaka Upanishad. It comes at the end of the first section of the second Mundaka. The second Mundaka is the climax, the Gauri Shankar. Whenever something goes to a peak, Osho uses the word like the Everest or Gauri Shankar. This mantra is Gauri Shankar of the Mundaka Upanishad. It should be our endeavor that we have to understand this mantra, because this mantra understanding is the one that can break the Hridaya Granthi, that can break the triangle of Avidya-kama-Karma. This mantra unfoldment requires none other than Dakshinamurti himself. And fortunately, we have in Swami Param, Sakshat Dakshinamurti, who has so beautifully brought out that Purusha Eva. Purusha means this Atma is manifest in front of us as the world. And this world in front of you is a product of your tapa, which is your upasana, and your karma, which is kama. This whole world manifests now. Existence there in front of you is none other than Brahman. And where do you discover that Brahman? This Brahman to be discovered in your mind, in your heart, the consciousness within your heart, which is enlivening them. That Atma within you, which is none other than the existence outside. The Sakshi here, the Chit here, and the Sat outside. This is what our teacher says. And if you understand this, Dikirati, the knot begins to break down. Oh Saumya, oh dear one, and that should be the endeavor. Friends, anybody who can help you to understand this mantra, unless this mantra is clearly understood, Mundaka Upanishad study is incomplete. The Hridaya Granthi chapter is continued in the second section of the second chapter of Mundaka. It continues, and we have also been studying the Bhagavad Gita. One of the climax verses of the Bhagavad Gita, which is a demonstration of the break of the Hridaya Granthi, is when Arjuna asks Krishna this question, the Sthita Prajna Ka Bhasha, and the brilliant answer. One of the most beautiful verses of the whole Bhagavad Gita is this, when Krishna says, Prajahati yada kaman sarvan partha manogata atman evatmana tushtaha sthita prajna tadvuchyate. The one who has discovered Purnatvam within himself, and one who is able to dwell in that Purnatvam, and thereby Avidya-kama-Karma is all gone. Such a person I would call is a Sthita Prajna. Towards the end of the second section, where there are so many glorious mantras, and the concluding mantra is this, which says, Vidyate Hridaya Granthi, Chindanti Sarva Samshaya, all my doubts disappear. The knot in the heart is broken. Shiyante Chasya Karmani, all my karmas are gone. Tasmin Drishte Paravare. That is the greatness, that is the glory of our Upanishadic studies. On this background, let us come back to the Eightfold Path. Buddha's verse, when you go to the Upanishad, it is so lofty. It feels like you are in Kailash. It is out of the world. But Buddha's teaching is so down to earth. Whenever you see a statue of Buddha, you will see Buddha is touching the ground, which means he's so earthly. He's so down to earth, and he's able to bring you to the level of the earth and make you able to understand. Somebody asked him, now what is the proof of your enlightenment? I can see there is something extraordinary, but what is your proof? Buddha touches the ground and says, this bhumi, which we consider as Lakshmi, this bhumi is my witness. This is my proof. So let us begin a very earthly approach to the Eightfold Path. Friends, to understand the Buddha methodology, we have to be as meditative, as Zen as possible. Only then, because if you understand through the mind is always a blockade. And therefore, we need to be able to go beyond the mind. And how do we go beyond the mind? We go beyond the mind by becoming very, very meditative. Imagine, shall we do an open eye meditation? We are all listening. But let us that I am listening not from my ears, not from my brain, but I am listening from the Sakshi within. If I become aware of the real me who's listening, I have a different quality of listening. I now go from the mind, because if I'm operating from the mind, I will not be able to understand the Buddhist sutras, because the Buddhist sutras come from openness. You will understand, a child will be able to understand Buddha because the child does not use the mind. A child lives so spontaneously. And the Buddha's Eightfold Path will open for us the way the mind is kept aside. And all we need to do is be ready, become aware of your bodily posture, see that you are in a comfortable position. As far as possible, do not move. Become very sensitive to all the background sounds and listen to two things. Am I listening to what is being spoken? Or am I listening to the thoughts within my own mind? The more I become aware of the listener, the Sakshi, then I come from a state of openness. My thoughts will come, thoughts will go, but I've now decided to become aware of the Sakshi and try to understand what Buddha has given us as the eightfold path to go overcome dukkha, to overcome sorrow, and to live in this world in a way of purnatvam. The eightfold path from our history books we know is this. I will go through the list: right view, right intention, right speech, right morality, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and let us see the brilliance of an enlightened master, Osho, how he is going to analyze. If you read from a mind, these things are like a history book. I have to remember the eightfold path. But if you go through the mind of a master, he will first tell you between what is right and what is wrong. This word right comes from the Sanskrit word samyak. Samyak is a very poor translation. When you say a translation, it is a loaded word. Unfortunately, English cannot give another word. The best word you can give in English is right. When you say right, there must be something wrong. He says for samyak, there is no opposite. Samyak means something like natural, something like spontaneous. There is a word called sahaj samadhi. It is something like that. Samyak is something so spontaneous, so natural, and therefore it becomes right, and it has nothing to do with right meditation or right intention or right view. It is natural meditation, natural view, and so on. So that is the word samyak. That is why Osho spends a lot of time to understand. Don't use the word from an English word, right? Like we have the word ananda. It is translated as happiness. See, happiness has got sorrow, but ananda, there is no opposite of for ananda. It is like this. So samyak is not against wrong. It is more like in tune with existence. Osho says samyak means being more balanced, being more centered. He says if you are there, you are wrong. If you are not there, if you're not there means if your ego is not there, if your lower self is not there, if your lower bird is not functioning, then the higher bird will function. Then the eightfold path of Buddha becomes very natural, becomes very easy to understand. I will first try to explain my own thoughts. I mean, whatever Osho has said about right view. What do you mean by right view? Now, over the years, all of us have been conditioned by our religion, our political system, our nationality. So whenever you see anything, your religion will come, your nationality will come, your gender will come, all these will confuse. So a right view is not to have any form of a prejudiced view, and which is extremely difficult. That is why we have to come from a state of no mind to be able to see things as such. Buddha uses the word yatha bhutam. He also uses a word called true suchness. Can you see it? And if you're able to take all the filters of the mind, if you're able to see people the way they are, not by the conditioning that you have got from others or from your religion or from your background. That means to see the world without any philosophy, without any religion, to see without any prejudice of caste or creed, without even your scriptures can be a background, without belief, without ideologies. In Buddha's time, there was a blind man, but he was a great scholar and he had tremendous amount of argument. He believed that there was no such thing called light. And he said, can you prove? Give me proof that there is the existence of light. And there was no, and he was so good in argument that when he was brought to Buddha, they said there is no point arguing with him. Buddha had a great physician. He sent him to a physician. He treated him, and over a few weeks, the person's blindness went. He was able to see. Once the blindness goes and you are able to see, your view is now clear. And once he's got a clear view, there is no prejudice, there is no argument. He comes and falls at the feet of Buddha. And Buddha says, I'm not a philosopher. I'm a physician. I try to take away all your blindfolds. I try to take away all your cataracts from your mind. He says, look without any opinion. Look at things just the way they are. And this is what is called as true suchness, yatha bhutam. Whenever I look at something, I look at it, what is the benefit for me? How does it harm me? Is it good? Is it bad? He says all these things are wrong. Osho gives a story of a certain judge who is punishing a young man so many times. And he tells the father of the young person, I'm really fed up with your son. How many times should I punish him? So the father tells the judge, Your Honor, I am also fed up. I have taught him the right technique, but every time he keeps getting caught, I do not know what to do with this fellow. So what is right is different for different people. Now, that is why Osho says, that is about right view. We now come to right intention. Unfortunately, my slide has opened up. I wanted to explain what right intention is without seeing my slides. We live in a result-oriented, in a goal-oriented. That means any project that I do, normally we will see what is the benefit for me and how I can use it over others so that I can have an edge over others. If you are looking from a personal goal-oriented, then Buddha says this is wrong intention. Right intention is when you are one with the whole. There is a beautiful prayer, and Swami Param says this is the best prayer that you can have. And that prayer is called Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinaha, Sarve Santu Niramayaha. Imagine a doctor saying Niramayaha, that let there be no diseases at all. So you are praying for the well-being, and your intention is, if your intention is one with the whole, then there will be no frustrations. He says, drop all intentions, drop all desires, become natural. And then you will see, there is that beautiful verse which came in Mundaka, Yam Yam Loka Manasa. When a Brahma vid apnoti param, when you have understood the Upanishad, you become in tune with the higher. And when you become in tune with the higher one speaks with you, and your intention becomes one with the intention of the whole. You have no private intention. When you drop all private intentions, the Muslims call this, Inshallah, the prayer of Jesus is thy will be done. Osho describes a Sufi prayer. It's a very famous story of a certain Sufi master who crosses a desert, comes to an oasis, but he's turned down by everybody. There is no food, there is no water. It is cold. They have been abandoned. They are extremely hungry. Imagine you have been without food and water the whole day, and you are in hunger. You have no shelter. And as Muslims will pray 5 times a day, he was praying. And he was praying, thank you, God, for all that you have given us. All his fellow disciples said, this is too much. On a day when God has given us hunger, thirst, and abandonment, and you're still praying to God. And the master says, my Lord knows what I need. My requirement now is hunger and thirst and abandonment. Let me accept this as the gifts from the Lord. Now, this is called right intention. And that is why we have to be one with the whole. And these are not from the mind, these are all from beyond the mind. So finally, what is right intention? You will see really there is nothing to do. There is nowhere to go. You allow him to express through you. There is one favorite story of mine. A man constantly was praying to God for wealth. God appears to him and says, 3 wishes. After that, don't come back to me. So he says, God, I have a very embarrassing wish to ask. If my wife dies, I will have all the peace in the world. And his wife died. At a funeral, so many people came and said, she was such a wonderful lady. She did this to me. And seeing all the glory of his wife, he goes back to God and says, I want my wife back. 2 wishes over, now only 1 wish left. Now, this time he didn't want to make a mistake, but he was not able to decide what is the best thing to ask. When he asked other people, they asked what they wanted, and he was not sure because there was not one wish which will give him everything. Years passed because he could not make a choice. And finally, God comes to him and says, I have given you a wish, why don't you ask? And the man says, oh Lord, can I have 1 extra wish? And God says, what is it? And the man says, can you in your wisdom, tell me what to ask. And God says, this is the best thing to ask. Ask to be content. Ask to be content no matter what you receive. Now, if this is called right intention, if I'm able to, from my heart says yes, that is why the most beautiful word in English is the word yes. That is from your heart, the word of acceptance. We finished only 2 of them. I'll go through very quickly. The rest of them will go quite fast. The third, he says, is about right speech. And what is right speech? He says, speak only that which you are absolutely convinced of, that which you think is absolutely true. If it is not your truth, don't bring it. Speak that, we have heard from Lao Tzu, only those who know don't speak, those who speak do not know. Buddha had given one of the most beautiful words about right speech. He said, don't speak unless you can improve upon the silence. Don't speak unless you can improve. If you really think silence is so beautiful, there is nothing that you can do to improve upon the silence. And that is what he said is about right speech. He said, speak only that which is true, that which is your experience. Be absolutely honest and authentic, only if you can improve upon the silence. And again, remind you of what Lao Tzu has said, those who know don't speak, those who speak do not know. And if this really touches you, most of our speaking life will become maunam. 100 times you have to think whether I should speak or not, and therefore speak that which is absolutely essential. There's a nice thing that Osho brings about. He says, if a neighbor comes and dumps some trash into your compound, you immediately go and fight with that person. But on the other hand, if the neighbor comes and puts some rubbish into your head, he tells you some secret about the third house, you know that fellow, some rumor he tells you, and he says, this is top secret, don't tell anybody. Now he has put some rubbish in your head. Now such rubbish we readily accept, we forward it to others with a rider. Now, this is a top secret. Don't tell anybody I've said this. Now, this is what he says is something that we should not propagate. And therefore, the importance of silence. He has given a fourth principle about right speech. He says, Anudvega, your speech should not be hurting for anybody. If your words are going to hurt somebody, see how you can modify it. Your words should come from the depths of truth. It should be pleasing. It should be helpful. And finally, Swami Param says, most of our problems come by unnecessary talking. And if you can reduce talking to the minimum, that is what is called right speech. The Rotary people have got a 4-way test before all their Rotary meeting. Is it true? Is it fair for all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendship? Is it beneficial for all concerned? Now, friends, this is a right speech. Let us look at right speech at a holistic way. We finished 3 of the parts. We now come to right morality. What is right morality? We all have morality which has been given to us by society. And when society has given you a morality, but there can be a split between the real me and the one that I am because of society. So Buddha and Osho says the morality that comes from outside is not right morality. The morality that comes from within, the morality that comes from, not from your conscience, but from your consciousness. That which comes from awareness is right morality, and what comes from unawareness is wrong morality. The teaching is live through consciousness, not through conscience. Morality can never transform you. Morality can always cause a split in you. In the French language, I'm told, this is subject to correction, we need to Google and see. It is said that they have only one word for, that is consciousness, both for conscience as well as consciousness. There is a story all of us know, a certain Zen or a Buddhist story. 2 Buddhist monks were approaching a stream. And they were about to cross when they saw a young lady who was very short, who was trying to cross, but the water levels was quite high and she was very hesitant to cross. The Buddhist monks have a very strong rule, and this comes from Buddha in one of the sutras. He says, never look at a woman, and if you look at a woman, don't speak to her. Now, the one monk was in a dilemma. It was getting dark, the lady had to get back home, and it was certainly beyond her height. So what he does is he helps hold her hand and helps her to cross the stream. But as they were going deeper, a time comes when he has to literally carry her across the stream. He carries her across the stream and drops her at the other end. There was another monk with him. He was boiling with rage, and for a long time nobody spoke. And after some time when he spoke, and he said, you have broken all the rules of Dhamma. So the first monk says, my brother, I have dropped her at the other end of the stream. You're still carrying her. Now, when you work from consciousness, sometimes in the Bhagavad Gita, that is why we need to take things from the context where Krishna tells Arjuna again and again, you must fight. And that is why we have to see it from the context where in the context, it may be okay to commit himself. That is right morality when it comes from a deeper understanding of your awareness rather than from consciousness or conscience. What is right livelihood? Buddha he says, make a simple livelihood. Let your livelihood, your income be based on your needs, not upon desires. And we have from our karma yoga also, if your activities can be more sattvic, less rajasic, and not tamasic. There should be no violence in your livelihood. Money is not everything. Osho has two more things to add. All of us are working for targets, and he says the more you work towards a target, it is like chasing towards the horizon. The horizon keeps receding, and the faster you run, you find the distance between you and the horizon is a constant. Another great message that Osho has to say is, normally we say nothing succeeds like success, and Osho says nothing fails like success. Kriti mahodado patanakaranam palamasashvatam gati nirodhakam. You think if I'm successful in my business and I'm opening more and more units of my business, nothing like that. Both Ramana and Osho says, look back, nothing gati nirodhakam. It is a block to your spiritual growth. The next sadhana that Osho gives, that Buddha gives, is called right effort. Right effort, Buddha talks of the middle path, neither too much nor too little. Whenever you're putting too much effort, if I'm putting too much effort to speak, then I'm not doing the right speech. Whenever something is happening effortlessly, that is a right speech. So if you're opening a package, if there is something new has come, and if you're struggling to open it, that means you're not opening it the right way. Right effort is basically effortless. How children play, how great painters or great surgeons operate, how musicians are able to play, you will see if there is no effort, you will see all the body, there is not one muscle which is training to do. And that is what our teachers call as right effort. The last or the second last one is called right mindfulness. Right mindfulness means right meditativeness. Am I speaking meditatively? Are you listening meditatively? Are you sitting in meditation? Are you walking in meditation? When you're cooking, when you're ironing, you're doing whatever you're doing, it does not matter what you do. Can we bring in Zen into what? And that is what Buddha says. Mindfulness is Buddha's word for meditation. To be alert, to be awake, to be Zen-like, to be 100% in whatever you do. And if you do whatever you do 100%, that is called meditation. And finally, Buddha's word is right samadhi. Right samadhi means, he says, if the 7 steps are right, then the samadhi, samhadi, you become one with the Lord. I mean, Buddha never talks about the Lord. You attain to purnatvam. Buddha never says purnatvam, but you attain to your goal. Samadhi means sometimes in meditation, you are lost to the outer world. And Buddha says samadhi is a transcendental state when you are deeply in meditation, but you're not completely cut off from the outer. So that is what is called right samadhi. I will conclude, friends. This is what is the eightfold path. In review, what is right view? Right view is to have no prejudice view. What is the right intention? Sarve bhavantu sukhinaha. Can I make my project which is in tune with the whole? Right speech is virtually no speech, or whatever you speak comes from the depths of truth, depths from understanding. Right morality is when your morality is functioning from consciousness, not conscience. Right livelihood is when you it is a balanced form of a livelihood, when you're not where it is based upon your needs, not upon your greed. Right effort is virtually no effort or a balanced effort. Right mindfulness is to be meditative in whatever you do. Right samadhi is your goal. If the first 7 steps of the ladder will lead you to the 8th. Friends, Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.